do that. And basically I'm going to have two environments here. One's going to be the same environment we were just working in, and the other is going to be a configurator server on a completely separate server, and I already have that set up, so we don't have to take the time to do that again. But I am going to walk back through the adapter setup because there's some different things that we need to do. Okay, and I just want to make sure that those are clear. Everybody gets see me walk through that. Okay, so again, in this deployment scenario, we have the configurator server on one server, and then on the Syteline utility server, we have the configurator adapter for Syteline, the by design host services, and then I always like to install the enterprise manager. It's just a lot more convenient because you have to go in and take a look at what the applications that you defined and such. So instead of switching over to the configurator server, I just like to install it. It's not necessary, but it's a nice to have. Okay, and again, there's going to be a separate server for the configurator. Okay, so on the Syteline utility server, we're going to do two things. We're going to install the adapter for Syteline again, and I'll just kind of run through that. And then we're going to install the following configurator components. So this is just like installing configurator before, but we're going to only install host services, enterprise manager, okay, and we're going to uncheck all the other features. So let's go do that right now. Okay, so again, we're going to install the configurator, which is a few of the components that we installed before, because all the other components, again, are on a separate configurator server. Okay, and again, we're just going to select the host services and enterprise manager features. Okay. Again, I'm just going to select the defaults, and I'm going to uncheck everything. In order to see how the server, you can't really select it. You have to uncheck the web user interface, and then you can uncheck the server. Okay, so again, host services and enterprise manager. Okay, that should just take a moment. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the adapter for Syteline. Okay, and all this is the same environment. I kind of rolled it back to a fresh state so that nothing that we installed previously was on. But that is done. And now I'm going to install my configurator. Or I'm sorry, my adapter. Now there is one thing to note as you're installing the adapter. If you actually explore the folder here, in the adapter there's a prerequisites folder. Okay, this is just checking for the installation of the configurator on the same server. So if you run this in the split server environment, since your configurator is somewhere else, it's going to error and say, hey, you need to install the configurator. If you get that error, you can just move past it. Don't worry about installing the prerequisites because that's all it's really checking for, and you can just move on to installing the adapter. Okay, so now we have the adapter and we have our additional components on our utility server. Okay, and now we're just going to basically run through the same steps that we ran before. We're going to run the configurator setup wizard. Okay, except we're going to write the bydesign.config instance file to a different location because last time we wrote it to bydesign 6.0 configurator server, and since the server is not installed, we're going to write it to the extension manager folder. Okay, but that's the only difference. It's going to be pretty much the same thing. Then we're going to install the adapter extensions, and then we're going to run the client deployment wizard again. So I'm going to go through step 4 and 5 quickly because it's the same thing that we just did. Except when we get to step 5, I'll talk about one change there, and it's again where we're pointing to the location of the configurator. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run through the setup wizard. Again, this is on my utility server. Okay, so that's bydesign 6.0, bydesign configurator, bydesign configurator setup wizard. Now when this comes up, you'll notice that there's no checkbox to create the database, so it's just going to ask us to connect to an existing database. Okay, and again, we would have done that on our configurator server when we set it up. So I'm just going to type in the connection information to the database where I created the metadata database for the configurator server. Okay, and it's BBC metadata 6.0. And then again, I'm going to write the instance file to C program files, ByDesign 6.0, configurator, enterprise manager. Okay, and that's going to complete. And we don't have to do any of the additional steps, licensing or everything, because again, that's on the separate configurator server. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install again the adapter extensions. Okay, so ByDesign configurator, adapter for ERP SL8, extension manager. Okay, so again, if you remember before, when you click the Load Databases button, okay, it's just going to bring up those models and applications that have been defined on the configurator server. Okay, so I need to go. Okay, this is the same exact steps that we did before. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and input my model server and my output server. And then I'm going to go back over to our Syteline server. Now load databases, and you see now that those are showing up. I'm just going to click on install on those again. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to run through the client deployment wizard, just like we did before. And find the host services and metadata instance file. C program files, ByDesign 6.0, configurator, host services. And then if you remember, we put this in the extension manager folder. Now the reason I put it there is because the extension manager folder is looking for that instance file to connect to those databases in a number of different folders, and this is one of them. So I just went ahead and put it in here.
Actually, I think you put it in enterprise manager.
Yeah, I think I did too. Okay. It's looking in several folders, and that is also one of them. So, but I typically do put it in that extension manager folder. Okay, so now we're going to set up our metadata instance file. Again, so now we're going to input the location of the configurator. Okay, and so just go ahead and copy that again. And again, it's the same thing, but we just want to make sure that we're pointing it to the correct configurator server, since it's on a different server this time. Okay, we're just going to copy those again. Register our application in Syteline just as we did before. Okay, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and skip over those steps since they're the same thing. Okay, if anyone would like to see me go through that, please feel free to chime in and I'll go through that. But now the steps are exactly the same as what we did in a single server deployment.